Hi, welcome to the Bruce channel. I'm Bruce. I suppose you either knew that or guessed, but in any event, I am glad that you are here. If you're a regular, you know that I was away last week, and more about that later, but it was pretty cool. So instead of last week, I'm today wearing what my mother would have called my Easter outfit, sans corsage. Anyway, it's obviously not an Easter show, so instead I'll dub this our wedding show. Not that anyone is getting, well, somebody somewhere is getting married, but no one here. But instead we do have something old, something new, something borrowed. I got blue covered. So, first the old. I got more reaction to our last show from 2 weeks ago, where I spent a fair amount of time talking about the labeling of GMOs. Well, new info since just 2 weeks ago. 1. In 2012, American farmers sprayed 280 million pounds of glyphosate on their crops. I'm pretty sure it was going to be more in 2013, and more again in 2014, and will likely be more again this year. 2, and this is rather scary. I talked on our last show about GMO crops being resistant to glyphosate, and that inevitably it would have to end up in the food. The week prior, the World Health Organization called glyphosate a probable carcinogen. Well, this is interesting. The EPA said that in 1985. I spoke about lobbying. Without any new research studies, in 1991, the EPA said it doesn't cause cancer. So, I think this is a pretty good metaphor. The EPA in bed with Monsanto. Speaks volumes, no? But this may be the scariest of all. There is apparently new evidence that the enzyme that is overproduced in GMO plants, it's the enzyme that allows it to tolerate glyphosate, decreases the levels of amino acids that protect the liver and kidney. Meaning, those GMO foods may be harmful even if they've never been exposed to glyphosate. Which means I may have to rethink whether I want GMO foods banned outright. 2 weeks ago, the point was against the proposed legislation which would prevent GMO labeling. I figured out why it angers me so, for a different reason but an analogous one. Let's say that a couple mutually decides to use pharmacological aid to further a night of romance. Mutually decided, I don't think there's an ethics violation. But I recall an episode of The West Wing. It came at the end of season 4 when the president's daughter, at a loud nightclub, is unknowingly slipped ecstasy by her date. Can anyone possibly think that's ethical? Or, spanning several months now, you are doubtless aware of the accusations made by several women against Bill Cosby, the accusations that he drugged them, and you know. Though the idea is repellent, I cannot stand in judgment of Mr. Cosby. All I know is what I've read. It is hearsay. But I can stand in judgment of what was alleged. The very idea is lower than despicable. So I ask you then, although for very different reasons, profit as opposed to lust, if GMOs can enter the food chain without their presence being disclosed, then wouldn't we all simply be being slipped a Mickey fin? All right, something new and old. Today is a special day. It's the final day of the Masters. I play golf, albeit badly. My dad didn't take us hunting and fishing, he took us golfing. There was a year back in elementary school. He pulled my sister, my brother, and I out of school so we could go see Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Gary Player play around at the Firestone Country Club in Akron. He wrote our excuse the next day. Please excuse Bruce for his absence yesterday. Know why? It was accepted. So I come by my love of the game naturally. Still, there is something extra special about the Masters. It's the only tournament of the 4 majors to always be played at the same course, the Augusta National in Augusta, Georgia. Its beauty is unrivaled. My azaleas have some buds, but farther south, spring is more advanced than Augusta. And every year, right on schedule, the azaleas are at their zenith. I lived in Atlanta in the mid-'80s. while tickets to the Masters are like gold and even passed on through wills and estates, back in those days you could attend the practice days. It wasn't cheap, but you could go. So in 1986, my dad drove to Atlanta on Sunday. Early Monday morning, we arrived at Augusta around dawn. The atmosphere is just magnificent. We walked the course, watched some of the golfers. I bought a hat, which I still have, and took some pictures. Here's a picture of the late Seve Ballesteros, who was in contention that year at the end. Here's a picture of two-time winner Ben Crenshaw, who announced 2015 was his last Masters this year. And here's a picture of Greg Norman. I think he came in second that year. This is at the first tee, getting ready to play a practice round with three others. Now, two things about that shot. We were close enough to hear them. So Greg says to the others, "So what, 100 a hole?" Chump change. And two, it never comes through on television, but up close, he has the physique of a god. Broad shoulders, chiseled arms, going down to a waist like that of a wasp. Another difference at Augusta and the Masters, and it's hard to describe, there's almost a sanctity about it. Go anywhere in America. Amusement parks, my front yard, parking lots, there's litter, sometimes lots of litter. Yeah, true, the expensive amusement parks have a large crew of cleaners, but if it weren't for them, we just throw crap on the ground. Well, all around Augusta National, placed discreetly are large green plastic refuse bags. It was a windy day. An empty bag of something, peanuts, chips, something, got away from somebody. It was blowing around. A fan, not the one from whom it got away, but somebody just got up, chased it down, and then put it in a refuse bag. Everyone feels that sense of hallow. That fan got applause from the rest of us. Anyway, it was 1986, as I said. That was an amazing tournament. Jack Nicklaus won it for the 6th time. No one else has ever won it more than 4. And he was 46 years old. Now, earlier in the week, I read the Atlanta paper's golf writer's appraisal of the field, where he handicapped whom he thought he would win. And when he got to Nicklaus, he wrote, I can still quote it 29 years later because it was such a remarkable week. When he wrote about Nicklaus, he said, only he thinks he can still win. That was great. Okay, last note. Another tradition at the Masters is on Wednesday. The day before the tournament proper begins, there is a special par 3 tournament. So watch this. Even though he's now 75 years old, Wednesday, this week, Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear himself, managed a hole in one.
Yes. Yes.
All right, now for the something borrowed. I borrowed this from a friend of mine. Charlie's mother yelled up the stairs, Charlie, get out of the bed, it's Monday, and you're going to be late for school. A couple minutes go by, there's no sounds. She yells again, Charlie, get out of bed already. Voice came back down, Mom, I don't want to go to school today. Well, she wasn't going to just accept that, so she asked, why not? Are you sick? Charlie replied, Mom, all the teachers hate me, all the students hate me, why do I have to go? She says, because you're 40 years old and the principal, now get out of bed. Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. Or wait, I can let others do it. Welcome back. A reminder, you can see all our previous shows at tinyurl.com/Bruce Channel and at our Facebook page, The Bruce Channel. And you can write us at thebrucechannel@yahoo.com. You know, here's something I just found recently. When you go to Google something, sometimes instead of the regular Google logo, they commemorate some date in history or some historical figure's birthday. I think it was last summer, every day during the World Cup, they had a little animation, a little couple seconds cartoon that played. And of course, the genius is that, somehow or other, the word Google is always in the picture. Well, I just recently learned that there is a repository for all of these. If you go to google.com/doodles, you can see what I guess is all of them ever used. And not only for those of us in the U.S. or those in English. So one must infer they must have a pretty good-sized team just working on doodles over at Google. John Steinbeck was a Nobel Prize-winning American author. Many of his works are filled with a very empathic view of the lower echelons of our society, and given that they often take place during the Depression, the lower echelons are low indeed. The novels include East of Eden, which, when made into a movie, starred James Dean in his first major role. Others include Cannery Row, Of Mice and Men, and the great Dust Bowl saga, The Grapes of Wrath. Now, beginning perhaps with Tortilla Flat, he wrote a series of what came to become known as the California novels. Actually, Mice and Men, the third, was written as a play, and The Grapes was the fourth. But after Tortilla Flat, and before Of Mice and Men, came the lesser-known In Dubious Battle. Well, lo, these many years later, it's finally joining many of his other works on the big screen. It takes place during the Depression and sees the clash of desperate farm workers against other desperate farm workers and, of course, the uncaring and powerful and rich and ruthless land barons. Its star and director is James Franco. Also in it, Bryan Cranston and Vincent D'Onofrio, Nat Wolff, Anna O'Reilly, Robert Duvall, and Ed Harris. Now, this only scratches the surface. Earlier this week, midweek, Robert Duvall was there filming his scenes. I don't even know what role he plays. IMDb doesn't yet list his role, but I'm guessing his age and the way he's dressed in these shots, he might be a cruel land baron. Or maybe he's a kindly doctor. I'm guessing cruel landowner. Anyway, they're filming it in Atlanta. And yes, having a chance to be a part of it, I went. Ed Harris was only there for 2 days, and at the end of one of them, workday's all over, I took, for the very first time ever, a selfie. Yes, that is Ed Harris and some farm worker. Some other things to show you. Here's a brief clip of the train coming. It's bringing a bunch of desperate farm workers. Now, I'm not going to reveal the story. If you've read the book, or if you do read the book, you'll find these things out. And of course, you can go see the movie, I think, later this year. But I'm not going to tell you here. Now, here's a shot of a sniper, although it's clear at this moment we weren't filming, so he wasn't in hiding. Now, this wasn't a very clear picture, but I just wanted to, I want to tell you, there were a lot of Hollywood trucks and a lot of equipment. So, we reported early in the morning. It was still dark. At dawn, the old cars and trucks were being moved into place for the railroad scene. And as I've said before, it's true. You do a scene, it takes 45 seconds or a minute and a half, and then you wait 20 minutes while they move the cameras. And here they were using 3, and then you do the scene again, and then you wait again. Now, I was a part of a crowd of farm workers. I shouted as part of the crowd, but it's not a speaking role. But still, I had to go. And maybe because I'm not tall, but in this scene, all right, we are heading toward the railroad tracks. We are being led by Vincent D'Onofrio. He plays London. Oh, by the way, he's a very tall man. All right, so right behind him, directly behind him, is James Franco. in the middle. And then to DeFranco's left is Nat Wolff. To DeFranco's right is, I don't know for sure, but I think it might be Robert De Niro's son. And then to his right, Anna O'Reilly. By the way, there wasn't enough time for me to write her a song. And then to her right, another actress. Okay, so I'm right behind Mr. Wolff. Well, when we get to the train, we kind of spread out, and the scene plays out, which again, I'm not going to tell you about. But I had one heck of a good time. I do hope you'll read the book or see the movie. As it happens, little guys versus big guys, it seems to have taken on a new relevance today. Okay, you know, I wish I'd taken sunscreen. Atlanta is farther south. It was warmer and the sun was brighter, and I had on old clothes. We're desperation poor, remember? So the sleeves of my flannel shirt had holes, the collar was completely frayed, and I had an old white tank top undershirt, very appropriate for the times, and I mean old. It had some holes, and for good measure, I put another hole where it would be obvious that it was old and torn, right where the flannel shirt unbuttoned. So the next day, my nose and my neck and my ears had some sunburn, and this little single sunburn island from the hole. Anyway, I did have a good week, but you know, I hope your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.